there's a couple different places that we could put them. Randy gets these calls all the time where he says, okay, we have a sub on the outside or a sub on the inside. What's better, Randy? And to be honest, it depends. Depends on the room, depends on where you're at. So you guys ever hear the crawl test? Yeah? Okay. So for those who don't know what it is, you take the subwoofer and you put it in the listening position. You play some bass heavy music and you crawl around the room. How is it over here? Oh yeah, that's good. And you're, oh no, it's not so good here. And you walk around the room and find areas that it sounds good. And there's a reciprocal effect. So when you're done, you take the subwoofer and you put it back in that position. You sit in the seat and you'll get a similar experience. It's not perfect one-to-one, but it gets you pretty close. We have a slightly more scientific approach to that. We'll do the same thing, but instead of listening with our ears, we'll actually use a microphone. So you can see over here we have a Dayton microphone. This is the UMM6. It's about $100. You could also do a mini DSP, UMic 1, about the same price. We have a software called Tune Software. It's JL Audio software. It's free to download, and it works with any system. It's not proprietary. You can measure anything from an audio system to a thunderstorm. It measures audio. So, first off, how did we get the subwoofers there? First, we captured the data. So we put the microphone here, captured it, moved it over to here, captured it, and we captured another one there. We said, okay, out of those 3 positions for each side, which position was the best? In this room, turned out to be that position. That's what we stuck with. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you that data on the graph and what it looks like. So first thing you're looking at, this is an RTA. It stands for real-time analyzer. The x-axis of the graph is frequency measured in hertz. That's how many times the speaker's moving back and forth per second. The y-axis is amplitude. That's measured in decibels, so how loud it is. So overall, we're looking at how loud is each frequency. So I'm going to pull up the measurements from those subwoofers in that position so you can see what they look like. So the front left is the orange, so we captured that one, and then we turned it off and we captured the right, which is the yellow. Now notice they're not exactly the same, they're slightly different, and that's because the room is changing, right? You notice how they're not very smooth either. There's a whole bunch of peaks and valleys. Doesn't JL Audio make good equipment? Of course we do. You take that microphone and you put it real close to the speaker, it'll be nice and smooth. But once you introduce it into a room, an environment, the room changes the sound of the speaker. So this is the result that we're getting by putting the microphone in that position for each speaker. So, what's happening here? Let me explain. The sound is starting at the speaker. It leaves the speaker, it goes to the mic position. The mic sees that data and it starts displaying it on the graph. But then it passes that position, hits the back wall, and returns back to the microphone. It reflects off the wall. And when that happens, that same frequency comes back at a later time because it's a reflection. And so that difference in time creates one of 2 things. Either constructive interference where you get a peak, or destructive interference where you get a valley. Peak, valley, peak, valley. You can see the pattern, right? So when that happens, how do you fix that? You've seen this stuff before, sound treatment panels. These are great at high frequency, they're very effective. But at lower frequency, the wavelengths grow so long that in order to actually control the low frequencies, you would need a panel that's feet in thickness. And that's why when we play heavy bass in this room, a couple rooms down, they might hear it because the bass travels its long wavelength. So that's where we're at. That's what we can do for the front, left, and right. So now our question becomes, now we know what each one does individually, how do they play together? When we play both, what do they do? So let me show you that. So if I engage both subwoofers, we get the blue. Notice that at low frequency, we gained about 6 dB, which is ideal. If you take 2 of these subwoofers and you put them together, ideal would be 6 dB roughly. And so at low frequency, we have that. It's excellent. But as we increase in frequency, notice there's a big cancellation, right? And that cancellation is caused when they're playing together. Now, they are equidistant from each position of the microphone, and the settings are the same. So it's not caused by one subwoofer playing later in time. This is actually another thing caused by the room. So imagine, just for a second, and this is just guessing here, but take this subwoofer and imagine it sends signal down the hallway to that door, bounces back to your position. This subwoofer sends signal out, but it hits this wall and kind of disperses. It's not bouncing off the door the same way. So that frequency, when it's coming back to the mic, it's different. They don't have the same relationship. which is why there's an interference there, and in this case, it's a destructive interference where we get that cancellation because they're not arriving at the same time in both the direct energy and the reflected energy from the room. So, how do we fix that? If we know that it's caused by the room, there's not much you can do about it in this case, unless you move the subs again. But we already put the subs there for a good reason. So what we did was we added a third subwoofer. So if you look in that back corner there, there's a Dominion 10-inch subwoofer that's hiding back there. And you haven't heard that yet. What you've been listening to is the blue. So you've been hearing, an area where there's a cancellation somewhere in the middle of the bass region. Now it's not very obvious because it's easier to pick up on a peak of energy where it's really hot than it is to pick up on, somewhere that's quiet and not really there. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you what the rear subwoofer looks like. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to get rid of the individual left and right, and we're going to show you the green. Now notice at this listening position, green doesn't do very well at low frequency, but I don't need it to. I need it to help us hear. And that's got a pretty nice peak there. So once we get the rear subwoofer working together with the front subwoofers in phase, using a combination of the distance measurements in the Anthem, as well as the phase control and polarity switches on the subwoofers, we have the ability to get them working together, and we end up with the purple. Notice this swing at that frequency around 54 hertz or so, 53 hertz. That's a 15 dB difference. It's massive. So, we're seeing that huge benefit in the frequency response. Now that's assuming all three subwoofers are the same level. Now you guys, some of you guys may be 2-channel guys or home theater guys, I'm not sure, but in a 2-channel world, we want to kind of have everything up front, not necessarily behind us. So that subwoofer being in the back, we're gonna reduce the level on that subwoofer so it's not localizable. We don't want it to be obvious that there's something behind us. So as a result, we're augmenting the front subwoofers. We're not taking over. If it's home theater, turn them all up, enjoy it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get that third subwoofer plugged in so you can hear it. We're gonna play some more tracks that have more obvious bass within the track. And the other thing I wanted to mention is with multiple subwoofers, you not only get a better frequency response, you also get an improvement in the reliability of any speaker that you're playing less hard. And you also get better dynamic range capability because you can play really quiet or really loud when you need to. As well as the last benefit is you get much better transient response, meaning that the speakers have to move less, so they're able to reach their peak excursion at certain frequencies faster if they don't have to move as far. It's not as demanding. So you get overall better presentation by having multiple subwoofers than just a single.
How many times have you heard somebody say, I'd like a fast subwoofer to keep up with my fast speakers? Well, what do they mean by speed? A small sub and a large sub can go 60 times a second, right? There's no difference there. One of them, it doesn't have to go as far to reach peak amplitude, and it's not coming from as far away when it's told stop. That start and stop reduction in time is the speed most people really want, right? And in the case of our subs, we have incredibly large motor assemblies, which is the big voice coil and magnet, connected to a very lightweight cone, with it being fed an amplifier with a very high damping factor, which is the ability of the amplifier to electronically control the motion of the cone. So you get the best of both worlds.